Welcome, everyone. On behalf of Dimensions in Travel, we are delighted that you are joining us today for our journey to Morocco. This is a morning mint tea talk because we have brought in one of our favorite tour operators live from Morocco, the folks from Abercrombie and Kent. My name is Diana St. James, and I'm one of the owners of Dimensions in Travel. Safe Travel is back, and we hope these events will inspire you to take a trip. And all of us at Dimensions and Travel are standing by to help make it so that you can travel safely to some of the destinations that we feature on these talks. But before we get started, just a reminder, we are recording this and we record all of our talks. So if you ever register for one and miss it, it will be posted soon online and on our YouTube channel. Secondly, we've got everyone on listen only mode and muted just to make sure that we've got enough bandwidth to do this well and to minimize distractions. And finally, we will be doing some Q&A at the end, but if you think of a question during the presentation, please post it in the chat box down below. If we can answer it during the presentation, if it's something maybe specific for you, we will. But if we think it's something everyone would like to hear, we're going to wait and do it at the end. All right, off to Morocco. So please sit back, sip that cup of mint tea, which is the sign of hospitality in Morocco, and travel with us. Morocco has a history stretching back 10,000 years. It is a country that has been crisscrossed by Roman legions, Berber caravans, and Muslim scholars. And their great cities like Marrakech, Casablanca, Tangier, Fez, Rabat, they offer a delicate balance between ancient traditions and 21st century comforts. I had a chance to travel there 3 years ago with my family at Christmas time, and we loved it. To this day, we still talk about certain things that came up that just made the trip so memorable. So please come with us on a visit to the colorful bazaars, take a sunset camel ride, stay in an overnight in the Sahara at an exclusive tented camp, maybe take a Tangier cooking lesson with a Moroccan chef, go to the incredible blue city of Chefchaouen, take some views of the high Atlas Mountains, and maybe stay in a romantic riad, which is a traditional and often luxurious family home that has now become a luxury property. But before we travel to Morocco, I would like to introduce my business partner and agency co-owner, Jill Romano, who will introduce our guests. Hi, Jill.
Hi, Diana. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's my pleasure to make a couple of introductions to you. First of all, Cynthia Reed is our sales director with Abercrombie and Kent, and Jean-Bernard Coudon, who is the A&K managing director in Morocco. Cynthia and Dimensions in Travel have been working together for a good few decades here. Her knowledge of Abercrombie and Kent's trips around the world, combined with her personal travel experiences, continue to be a vital partnership for us. Through in-person and now virtual training, most often including the managing directors from the A&K offices worldwide, she's supported and helped our team to expertly create the most amazing trips for you around the world. Jean-Bernard, or JB, as we like to call him, is the managing director in Morocco. He's been with Abercrombie and Kent for 30 years and opened their office about 15 years ago. He grew up between Casablanca and Europe and has explored all parts of the country, establishing himself as one of our industry's true destination experts. And I can personally vouch for that as well from my trip a few years back. He is passionate about the desert. Be sure to ask him about his Trans-Sahara expedition. Several years ago, as I mentioned, I was able to experience the wonders of this amazing country with Abercrombie and Kent, along with JB and other members of the team. And just a few years ago, while at a conference in Marrakech, we enjoyed a wonderful tour of the Majorelle Gardens and lunch at the Royal Mansour, all thanks to JB. So right now I will turn it over to Cynthia for a moment, and then JB is going to take us on a fabulous journey through the wonders of Morocco.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you, Diana. I just want to congratulate all of you listening today or to the recording afterwards for placing your travel trust in Dimension and Travel expert advisors. They're some of the most knowledgeable and best traveled in the industry, so you really are with the best. Well done. And I want to back up and Jill's comments. The world is opening. We have just announced as a company that we are going back into Italy, France, and very soon this month, later this month, Spain. So now we're up to 8 European countries open for travel, and very, very hopeful and excited to welcome Morocco to that list very soon. So we are all here to help you. Go to your favorite advisor and make a plan. And the other thing I'll pass along, my insider tip today, is 2022 is getting full and booked in certain destinations, certain seasons, certain properties. So if you're thinking about travel next year, now is a great time to make a plan with your advisor. Thank you. And I will back up on what Jill and Diana said. I've traveled twice to Morocco with Jean Bernard and his team, and each trip was spectacular, stunning. I learned so much, even from his presentation. So thank you. I know you're in for a treat. Enjoy.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Well, for everybody and for Cynthia, I have some news. We just took the decision yesterday, last night, that Abercrombie and Kent USA will also reopen Morocco within the coming weeks. So we don't have a date yet, but it's just a matter of days before that is officially announced. Let's talk a little bit about my Morocco, our Morocco, the one we like to share. We were talking Minty. I mean, Minty is really a very key element of our life, but not the only one. We have in Morocco a lot of highlights. I mean, plenty, but in my opinion, we have 3 main highlights. We have 3,000 kilometers of coastline. But honestly, if you're coming from the US and you want to go to the sea, you know, you have California, you have Baja California, you have Bahamas, you have Caribbean, you have you name it. You don't want to come to Morocco for that. So our real highlight to me are in the north. The upper red circle is the city of Fez. Fez is the heart of the Arabo-Andalusian culture. The Arab came from the Middle East. They went into Morocco. From there, they went to Spain for 800 years and they came back. We have here the capital of the Arabo-Andalusian culture. Then if we go further south, this bigger circle, this is the doorstep of the Sahara Desert. As you heard already, one of my favorites. This is the land of the Berber. This is the land of the nomads. This is the land of the Oasis, the mud forts, the Kasbah. Totally different culture. And then we have Marrakech, which is the place where Arab meet Berber and where we have all those fancy hotels. That's a very, very condensed summary of what I believe are the highlights in Morocco. And we are offering different options to travel to Morocco with Dimensions in Travel. We have some group departure program. My favorite would be Splendors of Morocco. And that is a program which is around 12 nights covering all the highlights of Morocco. And that is also the itinerary that we would propose if you prefer to travel just on your own as a couple or with friends, but not necessarily joining a group. That would be through our tailor-made programs. And of course, I mean, if you have specific requirements, you have to let Diana and Jill know about them, because with their knowledge of the destination and our partnership, we can design any experiences in Morocco for you. So talking about what a normal trip to Morocco would be, let's start with arriving in Casablanca. I have sad news for you. Ingrid Bergman and Humphrey Bogart never set a foot in Casablanca in their life. Rick's Cafe opened in 2000, and the best hotel in Casablanca is the Four Seasons, and it's a dry hotel. Casablanca is the entry port. This is where we would spend the first night, so you can recover from your transcontinental plus transatlantic flight before moving away and starting to discover real Morocco. I grew up in Casablanca, and I can tell you it's just a big, ugly modern city. But the hotel is very nice and very comfortable. Now, starting the trip, after the first night we arrive, we gather everybody. The next day we depart and we go to Rabat. Rabat is the political capital. It is also, to me, a first taste of Morocco. We have a few very interesting monuments, such as the Hassan Tower. That is a mosque that was starting to be built. They never managed to complete it and to finish it, but it's the same monuments than the Koutoubia in Marrakech, and another monument in Granada. We have the Mausoleum of Hassan the Second and Mohammed V, our kings. We have the first touch. You will have your first contact with a Kasbah, which is a fort, but that is a northern Kasbah made of stone. Then after that, we would continue to the region of Fez and Meknes. As I said, Fez is the capital of the Arabo-Andalusian culture. Fez is a maze of 9,000 streets. Some of them are so narrow that only one person can pass at a time. And this is where everything is done by the book. This is where you have all those amazing little or larger shops. My favorite carpet experiences in Fez, a lot of craftsmen, a lot of crafts, and this is the place where everything is done by the book. It is also a trip back in time. In the Medina of Fez, you will only find pedestrian donkeys and hand carts. This is the place where you have some guys sewing the slippers next to another guy making a teapot, next to another one selling live chicken and beheading them in front of you. I mean, we are moving like 300 years back in history. Fez used to have a very strong Jewish population, and that would be a great introduction to discover how in Morocco, Islam and Judaism lived in peace and harmony for thousands of years. Now, next to Fez, we have the city of Meknes, and you will also discover the city of Meknes. Also around Meknes, we have some vineyards, and we will do some wine tasting experience. And I know you're not necessarily coming to a Muslim country to try wine, but believe my French side of it, I stopped tourism to grow wine for a while. We do produce some very nice wines in Morocco. Next to Fez and Meknes, we have this amazing site, the Roman city of Volubilis. This is one of the very few places where you will be able to wander and walk in Roman houses, see mosaics with very little people around you. It's a great experience. In Fez, because we are in this so cultural place, we are going to stay in a cultural hotel. We have what we call riads in Morocco. They are former Moroccan homes that have been converted into boutique hotels. And that is, this one, Palais Faraj, is one of my favorites. And that is the kind of accommodation you would get inside the old town, which we call the Medina, overlooking that amazing Medina, which is a city from the 8th and the 14th century. And that is what the rooms look like. So it's very comfortable, but it's not a hotel. It's not the Four Seasons. It's not the Hilton. It's a totally different experience. Then, after having spent a few days in this region, we are going to move south. We are going to move toward the land of the nomad, the land of the Berber, on the doorstep of the Sahara Desert. It is quite a long drive, but it's a very scenic and beautiful drive to get to the land of the Kasbah, the mud fort, as you can see on that pictures, to Oasis Valley, because the only life in the desert is in Oasis Valley. The rest is totally dry, and suddenly you hit one of those valleys where you have those mud forts, the Kasbah, and life and agriculture. And then this is typical Oasis way of life. And then, of course, getting into the Sahara Desert, where we operate our own exclusive mobile camp, and you will get there for one night in the desert. I mean, all our tents have ensuite bathrooms, but they remain, I call them exclusive as opposed to luxury. The luxury in that experience is to be on your own in the desert with nobody around, to get on a camel, spend a night in the desert, and then move on. If you are just traveling on a tailor-made program, like 2 or 4 people together, we would design a camp like this one just for you. If you are joining a small group program like Splendors of Morocco, that is what we would design for you. That picture was taken about 3 years ago by some guests traveling on Splendors of Morocco program. Then, after the night in the desert, we are moving toward Marrakech through the city of Ouarzazate. I'm not going to ask you to repeat. And on the way to Ouarzazate, we're going to stop in a place which is a very small private museum made by Berber about the Berber culture. And this is where I learned more in maybe 1 hour in that museum than in 30 years in Morocco about the Berber culture. What is the difference between a Ksar and a Kasbah, how you build an adobe wall, how you create an irrigation underground water drainage system to bring the water toward the oasis and things like that. It's absolutely incredible. Then, of course, you will hit the city of Ouarzazate. Close to Ouarzazate, we have a lot of Kasbah, and we have UNESCO World Heritage Ait Benhaddou. So we normally, you would stay like 2 nights in that region, so you have time to come down after the long drive in and out of the desert and relax, and also discover the Berber culture through the Kasbahs. We are staying in the Berber Palace. I mean, don't get excited. It is only a palace by name, but it's still the best hotel available in the region. That is where we would stay for a couple of nights. And then, of course, we are crossing the Atlas Mountain to go to Marrakech. Marrakech is that city where Arab culture meets Berber, where we have all those incredible hotels, where we have all this incredible life. Actually, Marrakech is a crossroad of civilizations. The caravan came from sub-Saharan Africa all the way to Marrakech to meet the merchant that would then send goods to Europe. It is an incredible city with a huge diversity. This is Gemma Hafner Square, which is the pulse of Marrakech, with the food stalls at night. Of course, the souk, which is the old town market with everything you can think of, colors, spices, crafts, and we have a legacy from Yves Saint Laurent and Pierre Berger. We have the Majorelle Gardens. Majorelle Gardens, which you will be visiting, and next to the Majorelle Garden, in the Majorelle Garden, we have the Berber Museum, and next to the Berber Museum, we also have the Yves Saint Laurent Museum, which opened only a few years ago. And that is a very, very interesting experience. You realize how Yves Saint Laurent has been influenced by the Moroccan culture and by the Moroccan dress codes. It's really amazing. Then we have, typically, we would have one day we visit the souk, the Medina, we go to Majorelle Garden and Yves Saint Laurent Museum, and then we have a day where we give you more option to choose from. We call it Design Your Day. Looks very fancy, but actually it's quite simple. You know, you want to go and stroll through the Medina, we will provide you with a guide and you can do the shopping you want. You can go through the little narrow streets without being lost or without being harassed. If you prefer to have a more hands-on experience, we suggest you do a cooking class. Learn how to cook a tagine and impress your friends when you're back home, because it's much easier than it looks like, believe me. I can cook a tagine and I'm not a great cook. And then it is also an opportunity, if you are interested in that, to learn more about our past common Jewish history. Judaism arrived in Morocco 500 BC after the first fall of the Solomon Temple. When Islam arrived in Morocco in the 9th century, about 35% of the Moroccan population was already following monotheism through Judaism. And it's really great to discover how the two religions live together. I am Christian. My family arrived in Morocco in 1919. So just a little bit over 100 years ago. And I know I can tell you how it is to live and grow up as a Christian in Morocco, where basically the three religions of the book live together in total peace and harmony. In Marrakech, we will stay at the Four Seasons. It is a beautiful property with very spacious rooms, and it's a little bit of a, after going to a riad in Fez, after going to the tented camp in the desert, after going to the incredible Berber Palace, going to Marrakech at the Four Seasons, it's a little bit like back to civilization. It's a great property, amazing service. And if you are on a tailor-made program and you prefer to do a bit more of a cultural experience and you have enough of the Four Seasons stay, we also have beautiful little riads. My favorite is called Villa des Orangers. It's a relais chateau property in Marrakech, in the Medina of Marrakech. And that is what one of the room looks like. So that is the main trip, and this trip in 12 days, 12 nights covers all the highlights of Morocco. Now, some people may want to discover more about it. Diana mentioned it in her introduction. You know, we also have the north of Morocco, which is an interesting region to visit. We could do that as a pre-tour or as a post-trip. You know, I would recommend to do the north maybe as a pre-tour before going to the full circuit, Casablanca, Fez, Meknes, Desert, Marrakech. And that would be like maybe a 2-3 night program, going first to Tangier, the international city of Tangier, where we would stay in a boutique hotel like this one called Villa Josephine. Then we would discover the region of Tetouan. Tetouan was a Spanish city, but it was actually a Jewish city before being a Spanish city. So you have a bit of the Spanish architecture, and then you have a bit of the traditional architecture, church and mosques next to each other. And then you may have heard of, if you go on internet, you will have heard of the blue city of Chefchaouen. It's a tiny little city. It's not very big. It can be visited in a couple of hours. So we can either go there and overnight there and spend like an afternoon or a morning in Chefchaouen, or what we can do is drive from Tangier in the morning, go to visit Chefchaouen, have lunch, and then continue on to either Fez or Casablanca. This is the blue city of Chefchaouen, very famous for its blue walls where you can take a nice Instagrammable picture. The level of accommodation in Chefchaouen is quite low. We are using boutique hotels, but they would be like 3-star properties. After the trip, after having been to Casablanca, Fez, Desert, and Marrakech, there is another possible extension going to the, yes, you hear me, coastline. Now, you're not going to Essaouira because it's a coastal city to see the ocean and discover the sea. You're going there because it's an historical place with an incredible culture. Essaouira was built in the 17th century. It is one of the very rare cities in Morocco where the total population was 20,000 inhabitants. You're talking like 18th, 19th century, 20,000 inhabitants, 7,000 Muslims, 13,000 Jews. It was the main trading port of Morocco. We had ships going out of Essaouira, going to Boston, going to Southampton, going to Bordeaux, to Amsterdam. It was the main trading place. And it is a very interesting little town to visit. We could go there after the trip as an extension for a 2-night extension to Essaouira, discover the city, and we would stay there in a relais chateau property called Palais Bleu, which I really like. The rooms are a bit small, but I mean, it's such a different experience. And with that, I have been through the main highlights of Morocco, and we are now very happy. I'm very happy to answer any question you may have.
JB, thank you so much for a whirlwind tour of Morocco. Very briefly, you had mentioned the Majorelle Gardens and Yves Saint Laurent, and I just wanted to point out that I am wearing the Majorelle blue that is so famous as a result of that garden. It even has its own PMS color, this rich, rich blue. And I have to say, every time I wear this top, it just takes me back to Morocco and that fabulous, the design and the decor and the things that one can buy for your home, and the inspiration that Morocco has been, I think, in decor now is, I think, legendary. So, and we could see that in some of your images. So thank you for showcasing all of that for us. Jill, shall we take before we get to questions, I do want to say, I know we have some folks who are visually impaired or blind who tune in for our presentations. And I know that sometimes the chat might be a bit of a challenge. So if you do have a question and you would like to unmute as we get near the end and ask a question verbally, that's fine with us. But Jill, why don't we start with what might have been posted?
Be happy to. I would also mention before we start the questions, shopping is a big part of a trip to Morocco, and I can attest to that. So, the Abercrombie & Kent guides know exactly where to send you. So keep that in mind as well. So Diana, a couple of questions from the group. Some of these came in a little bit earlier. Could we touch just for a moment, JB, on the entry requirements, PCR testing, that kind of thing?
Okay, so as of the 6th of June, we have a new regulation, but I mean, everything is so fluid, it's moving and changing all the time. But right now, for the time being, if you have a vaccine certificate and a hotel reservation, that's all what you need to come into Morocco. If you don't have a vaccine certificate, you need a PCR test with a result, which is, I'm talking about the result, not the day you did the test, but the day you got the result should be less than 48 hours prior to arriving in Morocco. That's all what's needed. We have direct flights from New York to Morocco. If you want to travel tomorrow, I would suggest you go on those direct flights via New York. I know for most of you, it's not direct via New York. It's already half of the trip. But otherwise, as of 15th of June, we are going to reopen our sky with Europe, and there will be some possibility to travel via Europe, but you have to be very careful. We are only open with Europe, 2 countries which do not have too many variants. So we're going to reopen France and Spain and Italy, but for example, we're not going to reopen UK right away.
And what about the testing prior to coming back to the US? Because currently the US is requiring the PCR test. Do you have something set up for our clients when they're over in Morocco with A&K?
Yes, indeed. We have contacted and we have contracts in different cities with nurse and lab, which are officially allowed to do PCR tests. And the nurse will come to your hotel and do your testing either in the lobby or in your room. It's up to you. And the results are issued. If we do the testing before 1 p.m., we get the results usually around 6 or 7 p.m. the same day. So
wonderful. That's
pretty easy. And the cost of the test is depending where and depending on the nurse, it's between I would say between $90 and $110 US dollar.
Very good. And then the Abercrombie & Kent, the staff, the tour guides, etc. People have been asking questions about the status of vaccinations within the country. And I think you had mentioned to us the other day, you thought September would be the time that would happen. And then in terms of...
I mean, basically at this stage, we are vaccinating by age range. Mm-hmm. So and we are now down to 40 years old. So I'm just about to get mine. No, I'm cheating. I already had mine. So most of our guides are quite senior guides. Our top guides are quite senior. So if that is a requirement, we would book one which is vaccinated. But what we've done, because we have now started to operate again, is that before our team goes on a trip, we do a PCR test for the team. That being said, the way Morocco has been rolling up the vaccination program, I am confident that by September, we would have everybody vaccinated. There has been a request from the travel industry to the government to give a priority access to vaccination to the people in tourism. And I know that that received a very favorable answer from the government. So we're just waiting for the official announcement, but I think it will happen pretty soon. And then of course, everybody will have been vaccinated.
Fabulous. That's great. And then there was a question, and maybe if we could just clarify. So from my experience, I can share that the Majorelle Gardens and the Yves Saint Laurent Museum are sort of on the same block. They're on the same street, and you can tour the gardens, but there is a separate access to the private home that really needs to be done through A&K, but none of it should be missed. I know Diana experienced that as well, and that certainly was a highlight on the trip.
So yes, it's to understand on the same block, I would say there is one block. On that block, you have the Majorelle Garden. On the Majorelle Garden, inside the Majorelle Garden, you have the Berber Museum. Then just next to the Majorelle Garden, on the same property, you have the Yves Saint Laurent Museum. Those two entities are open to public. And then behind those two, but on the same block, you have the private area, which is the house of Yves Saint Laurent and Pierre Berger, which is called Villa Oasis. That visit can be organized, but it's a very private and exclusive visit that can be organized through us separately.
Very good. Thank you. And then I think what's on everybody's minds is when should they go? And we will want to encourage everyone to go sooner than later. I believe when we were chatting with you the other day, April and October of next year are nearly sold out. So it's really time, if you're thinking about Morocco, now's the time to make those plans.
Even this October, I mean, it's coming this October, next April and next October 2022, we are starting to have availability issue in some places. To me, it is now the right time to book and travel, because the destination is sort of awakening. The hotels are very eager. Everybody's very eager on the tailor-made side, you know, to accommodate special requests, we can find some good deals, etc. And then people are slowly realizing that Morocco, being so popular, is filling up. And very soon the hotels will start to be more demanding and more complicated to deal with. So my recommendation, if you want to do a tailor-made, work on it now.
Absolutely. And people need to remember, apart from the Four Seasons, which are a little bit larger, most of the accommodations, you know, we're not talking about 500 room hotels in Morocco. So that's why the space is filling up. So best to get on it quickly.
I made a calculation the other day. In the city of Fez, in 5-star luxury level, we have a total of 83 rooms split into about 4 or 5 properties. 83 rooms.
Well, that's the pre-questions I think we've answered. If anybody in the crowd want to unmute themselves and ask a question, please feel free to do so. Well, JB, I think that's a sign that you've been incredibly informative. I do want to say to everyone too, kudos to Jean-Bernard. He created that beautiful luxury tented experience out in the desert, and that was your baby and your creation. And it's a wonderful experience and definitely a highlight of the trip.
It is definitely the desert part. If I have 2 minutes, the desert part, as you know, is my favorite. And we have even designed and created expeditions going across the Sahara Desert all the way to Dakar. I have a team of experts that I travel with that we can, with whom we can design even a little off the beaten track itinerary for a small group of people if they're really crazy to spend more time in the desert. What was it? Early May, second week of May, I spent about an entire week scouting new tracks in the desert and new locations because we have a lot of experience to share there. And I just wanted to add something which you know, but which is important to share with all the people that make the effort to attend this presentation. There are very strong bonds between Morocco and the US. There are historical strong bonds, and you need to know that Morocco is still one of those countries when you say, "Oh, I'm American," people go, "Oh, wow." And I think it's important to know that because it's true. You know, there's still this image of the American dream, and the relationship with the US is dearly valued in Morocco. I just wanted to mention that.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think that's a lovely note to finish on. Diana, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Yes. Thank you to JB and Cynthia Reed from Abercrombie and Kent, and Fatih and Duna from the Morocco office for getting this all set up with us today. And thank you to all of you for attending live, and to everyone who's watching this as a recording later. We're grateful that you were a part of this very long distance experience today. And we hope that we can help you get to Morocco yourself. I will never forget the number of stars I saw under the sky on that desert experience. I have never seen so many stars in my life, and I will never forget that. So thank you again, everyone, and we'll see you on our next journey. Bye-bye now.